It's time to move forward. It is time to move on, and it's time to do different and look different and be different and do those sort of things that they just have not done. And they've done it in any way that they've decided that they need to be different is also, and we've railed against this too, and people have gotten mad at us, but ultimately we're going to be right about this again, and look at what's going on right now. I think we're pretty right about this, is that being new and being different and being unique and being a challenger brand has really resulted in them looking, feeling, and acting a lot like the other place. And really, what's weird is in all of this desire and want from a lot of people in that office to look and feel and be and sound and all this sort of stuff like the other guys, while they've been doing that, the other guys have really evolved in a lot of ways. Over the last year and a half, WWE has evolved in a lot of ways. Now, there's some stuff. There's some very basic tenors of WWE programming that are always going to be there no matter what, whether Paul Levesque's booking it, whether Kevin Dunn's there or Leaf Fitting's there, whoever it may be. But they have kind of evolved and adapted a little bit, WWE, and not in gigantic ways, but there's a couple things. If you watch a WWE show these days, there are things that look and feel different than they did 2-3 years ago. And AEW, for whatever reason, because of a lot of people that they've hired in that office, which we're going to talk about them in a sec. I want to talk a little bit about a lot of the hires that have gone on and accountability and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of those people that they've brought in from the outside to come into AEW and they're wrestling experts, and they're experts with a lot of expertise in this field or whatever. A lot of their expertise in the field has been making them look, feel, and act a lot like WWE was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. While WWE is on the other side, kind of for the first time in a very long time for their company, evolving the way that their show looks and sounds and feels. And it has just made them, it makes AEW look like a very dated product in a lot of ways. It's got a dated roster with a lot of people you've seen on television for decades. It looks and feels a lot like old WWE. Like by old WWE, I mean, WWE from 5, 6, 7 years ago or whatever.
2019
Yeah.
WWE. Like Dynamite. I'm not cutting you off, and I'm gonna let Rich cook because Rich is cooking. I'm gonna let him cook. But a common Dynamite looks and feels like a 2019 era Raw. That's what it is. That's how it feels, and that's how it looks with better wrestling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course. And that's always been the caveat that we sort of came at AEW with and discussed. Even a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we first started noticing. You were probably the first one, I think, in March 2023, noticing this thing's starting to look and feel a little different here. What's going on here? What's kind of happening here? And by April 2023, full on screaming about, guys, I don't like the way this is going. And you got a lot of shit for it. And you stuck to your guns. You stuck to it and said, guys, I'm telling you, this thing doesn't look and feel like it used to, and it doesn't look and feel like it should if we're going to truly be an alternative and be a challenger brand or whatever. And over those years now, it really, it doesn't. It's losing a lot of what made it unique and a lot of what made it different by being like the other guys and being and wanting and desiring to be like the other guys, because that's how wrestling is done. That's how it has to look, and this is how it has to be. And that is a problem because people tune in and it's the same. It looks and feels and acts exactly like a show that you've watched for decades. And a lot of times it features a lot of the same talents, like I said, that you've seen for decades now. And eventually that's going to have an expiration point where people, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, you've been watching wrestling for, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades. It's just it's not a show that really feels like an exciting new show in any way, shape, or form. It feels like a very familiar show. And I don't think that's good. I don't think AEW should feel like a familiar show in any way, shape, or form. It's still, as number 2, it should always be.
The feeling they're talking about restoring is that feeling that it was something new, unique, and groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And that's why they constantly say restore the feeling. That feeling's gone because of everything you just said. And I truly believe, starting around February and March of 2023, when everybody thought I was a lunatic, and history has proved me right, that's when the tone of the show started changing. I think from that point to this point, they have run off the portion of the fan base who doesn't like this style of wrestling television presentation, because that's what drew them to AEW to begin with, because they didn't like this style of wrestling presentation. And now they're slowly going away because that's what AEW is now. And I think that's one, and that's not the only problem, or even necessarily, I don't even know if it's necessarily the core problem, but it's a big problem.
Becoming everything you rallied against is not good. How
Right.
is that going to make you feel if you're one of these fans that jumped in on the revolution or whatever and said, all right, here we go.
Right.
And now it looks and feels and acts exactly like the thing that you.
That's wait. This looks and feels like the wrestling I didn't like to begin
right,
with.
that you
That's
told
why I
us
was
sucks.
watching
That
this
you said very publicly.
And again, I don't think that's the only reason. I think there's a lot of contributing factors. I think trying to boil it down to one thing is foolish. Brawl out, obviously, is a major contributing factor. Not just the WWE style and tone that we're seeing on screen, but all the WWE writers and execs that they have in there, which contributes to the loss of AEW's identity that we are just speaking about, is obviously a factor. The poor marketing and planning. I mean, for the C2 to come together as late in the game as it did, to the point that their selection show that they were hyping couldn't air until 10 o'clock Eastern that Sunday because they didn't have the field settled just hours before they announced the field, which I know for a fact that as late as Thursday, they didn't know the whole field for that tournament. That's a fact. I suspect they didn't know the whole field for the tournament as late as the weekend. I don't know for a fact, but I know for a fact by Thursday they didn't have the field settled. This is the kind of thing you should have planned and booked out months ago. Months ago, you should have known who was in this, who was winning it, the result of every match. Okay? And then if there's an injury or something, you of course you constantly have to adjust. That's a different thing. You know, so and the marketing, listen, this company is just, and the guy at the top just puts way too much value in Twitter and social media. And it's something that we talked about.
Right there. He puts way too much value in Twitter.
And he's starting to branch out a little bit. They're starting to announce things on TikTok and these other places, which is just falling into the same trap, to be quite honest. But at least it's more diversified if you want to look at it from that standpoint. But, I mean, announcing all of your matches on Twitter, which is where a large majority of their announces or their matches are announced, not on their TV, on Twitter. It's absurd. It's absurd. Okay? You need to announce things on your TV and hype things on your TV. The marketing is awful.